Hello, so welcome everybody to this lecture about astrophotography and aurora photography together with Cyberphoto and Sigma Nordic. So first I want to introduce myself. So I'm Luisa. I'm originally from Germany, but I moved to Lapland, so like to Rovaniemi in 2020, so already 4 years ago. And yeah, so basically just want to tell you a little bit my story, how I ended up in Lapland. So basically I was studying tourism, and then it was time to sign up for exchange, and I always already loved photography. So for me it was like, okay, I really want to go to a place, with not so many people, with lots of opportunities. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to the coldest place possible, as far away as possible. So that's how I ended up in Lapland. And I loved it. So the plan was originally to stay like for a month, but then, yeah, never came back. So, yeah. So I started photography already when I was small. So I started already when I was like 10 years. I got my first little camera, and then I bought my first real camera when I was 16 with the first money from my summer job. So, yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, and now I'm super happy that I'm able to do this full time, and that I'm even a Sigma ambassador. So this is like super, yeah, nice. And I'm super happy to be here today and show you a little bit of my work. I hope that I can inspire you to start with astrophotography, or I can teach you something. Yeah. So I started this together, like working this full time together with my boyfriend, Lorenzo. So I met him actually in Lapland while playing volleyball in 2020. It's this guy over here. He's actually out right now chasing the auroras. And yeah, so we started aurora hunting together, exploring Lapland, and that's how I really found out that I really love to be here. And yeah, 1 year later in 2021, we started our company together, Arctic Road Trips. You see this little logo here. So our goal is basically to show the people the Northern Lights, to show them like the beauty of the Arctic, to show them what we see, how beautiful it is here. And yeah, since that, it actually all started with astrophotography, because we started taking photos, we started posting on Instagram, and that's how everything got rolling. So it actually all started with astrophotography. So our goal is to show people the Northern Lights. That's why we spend a lot of time driving on the road, searching the auroras, because the aurora, it doesn't always just like happen like this. It actually, like, sometimes you really need to search it, because you need clear sky. Of course, if it's cloudy, you can't see it. So all these things I'm gonna talk about. And yeah, so we have our own concept now, basically searching spontaneously the aurora. So yeah. Yes, so if you have any questions later about the settings, astrophotography, about the lenses or anything, you can write everything in the chat. I have it like right here next to me, so I'm gonna see it, and I'll do my best to answer it either like during the lecture or after. Yes, so let's talk. First, I wanna tell you a little about what I'm planning here to talk about. So first, it's all about astrophotography, so shooting at night. So I want to show you a little about the settings for astrophotography, then like equipment, so which lenses are my favorite or our favorites, which cameras, which tripods, which other useful things you might want to bring when you go outside, and then of course you want to shoot the aurora. So I'm gonna teach you a little bit about the weather, about aurora activity, so you're actually gonna be successful while going out. Okay. Let's start. So why I think astrophotography is so beautiful? I think it's because you actually take time to like be awake at night, to look at the stars, because it's open up like to our universe. So I think that's why I love astrophotography the most. It's quiet outside, it's maybe cold, you're in a lonely place. I don't know, I just love the vibes of it, I think. So I want to show you a little bit about the settings, so you can get like the best pictures out of, like, if you already have a camera, or yeah. So when you want to shoot the aurora or like the Milky Way, you always make sure that your camera is on manual. So you usually have this little wheel here. I mean, this is a Sony now. I think on other cameras it might work like slightly different. So you want to put it on manual, and so you can choose all the settings manually. I usually don't use any auto or anything, because with manual you can control much better how your picture is gonna look like. Then you wanna set the aperture to the lowest possible. So the aperture basically means how wide open the aperture is. So if you have, let's say, like the widest is 22, it would be closed. And you want to open it as much as possible, so as much light as possible can go into your camera. Because of course it's dark outside, so you want to make sure your camera captures the little light that there is, it captures it as best as possible. So that's also why I'm gonna later talk about our lenses, because not all lenses have the possibility that you can have a very, like, that you can open them very widely. So that's why it's important, if you want to start with astrophotography, to actually use like the lowest aperture possible. I have it set here. This one is a very like bright lens, so it has the f at 1.4, which is amazing. Then so after you have set the aperture, this one you're gonna leave always the same. So you don't need to worry about it. You can leave it like as when you go out, you can always leave it the same. I always leave it as wide open as possible. Then we want to look at the ISO. So the ISO means how light sensitive your camera sensor is. So of course you want to put it higher, because the more sensitive it is to light, the more light it can actually capture. You need to be a little bit careful when it comes to ISO, because it depends on your camera how much ISO, like how high of the ISO it can support. So I usually have it at like 3200 more or less, but it depends on your camera, because the problem with the ISO is the higher you put it, the noisier the photo is gonna get. So that's why I would say 3200 more or less is a good number. Of course, like with some of the Sony cameras, you can even go up to 5000, 6000. It's not gonna get grainy. But if you maybe have an older model or something like that, then it's better to maybe stay a little lower to make sure you're not getting too much noise in your photo. Then the most important thing that you can, so basically this you always leave the same, the settings. But if you, the only thing you're gonna always change is the shutter speed. So the shutter speed is basically the thing that you're gonna change throughout the night, depending what you're shooting. So the difference is, for example, this photo here, the one with the Milky Way here. So the less light there is, the more time you need to open your like the camera to light. So let's say you want to shoot something very dark. That means you need to have the light falling into your camera for a long time to actually capture something. So this photo was probably taken with a shutter speed of around 10 to 15 seconds, maybe also more, like 15 to 18 seconds, I would say. Depends on your camera. Of course, if you have a great lens, if you can support a high ISO, you can reduce the shutter speed and get the same result. But if you have, let's say, a 2.8 lens and maybe a crop sensor, then you need to go over 30 seconds to get the same result. But so basically, the brighter the sky gets, the less shutter speed you use. So for example, this photo here on the right, the aurora was moving very fast. So there was a lot of movement in the sky. And I used a shutter speed of like 1 second, so very fast. The problem is, if you use too long shutter speed, it all gets blurry, just like a green fat like thing in the sky that's supposed to be the aurora, because it's, of course, it's moving and then so much light falls in that it just gets like overexposed and burnt. So that's the thing that you need to be careful with when shooting the aurora that it actually gets sharp. So it's actually quite easy to remember. The brighter it is, the lower the shutter speed. That's also then at the same time with shutter speed, of course, we don't want to talk only about aurora, but maybe you don't want to photograph, but you want to photograph the Milky Way. So this shot has been taken in Madagascar, one of the best places with no light pollution, super clear skies, and yeah, I love it. So if you want to capture the Milky Way, of course, first you need to make sure that there's no moon, because if you have the moon, of course, it adds light to the sky, so you cannot see the Milky Way as well. So this was taken with completely no moon and almost no light pollution at all. You see here the core of the Milky Way that we only see like mostly from the south more, not as much, unfortunately, here in Lapland. So here I used a shutter speed of around 30 seconds, meaning again, the darker it is, the higher you have to put the seconds. You can see a little bit the star trails here because of course we as Earth, we are like rotating. So you can slightly see already with 30 seconds that like that we actually move, like that the Earth moves. I think it's cool because that's how it is. If you don't want that, so there's maybe like if you have seen more like also professional photos of the Milky Way, they use something called a star tracker. So it's like a little device that you put on your tripod and it's gonna move exactly how fast our Earth is moving. So then you don't get these little star trails here because then you have a, you know, like a clean image. It's just like a little thing that you can buy if you prefer that. But I mean, that's personal taste, so that everybody can choose how they want. So last but not least, I want to show you a little bit about the influence of the white balance. And it can actually have a very big influence on the photo. So the white balance is measured in Kelvin. So around so exactly 5,000 Kelvin is neutral. So it's not very cold and it's not very warm, the photo. So basically the higher you put the Kelvin, the cooler the image gets. So like this one here. I put now two extremes so you can see the difference. Or you can change it lower and then you will get a warmer image. That's completely personal taste. I like to use a little bit cooler white balance, especially for the aurora shots, but it's a matter of taste. Like actually I always often leave the white balance on auto, so usually all the cameras, they have like a little auto white balance and it works most of the time just fine. The only thing you need to be actually careful with is when you're shooting a time-lapse. So when you shoot the time-lapse, it means your camera takes a photo like every second or every 2 seconds. It basically it can change the white balance with it. So if you want to have a time lapse, you want to have that the white balance is stable. Otherwise, it's not gonna look good. So that's why if you're taking a time lapse, make sure you set the white balance before on 1. So you're not gonna have like like one darker one. So that's just important to know. The white balance, you can also change it after. So while shooting, I wouldn't worry too much about the time lapse because while you're editing, so if you later like see your image with Photoshop or Adobe Lightroom, you can change the white balance. I mean, you can change the temperature. But of course, I like to edit my photos as little as possible because I think nature is beautiful how it is, so I don't like to edit that much. And you can easily like regulate it after, but I usually try to get it like how I want it already on the spot. Then the most tricky thing, I think, especially when you start, is the focus. So when you start, you have to put the focus on manual because it's very hard for cameras to get focused automatically at night. So you put it on manual focus and then on the lens, actually have it here, you have this small ring here where you can like adjust it. So when the stars are the smallest, that means your photo is on focus. So you will turn, you see, okay, the stars are smaller, 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 smaller. And when you have reached the smallest point, that means they're on focus. It can be tricky, especially if you have a DSLR, so a camera that still has a mirror, because typically the finder and the display at night, it's very dark, like you can't see much. You can help yourself with either focusing on a light that is far away. So you, for example, here you have a little light here in the back, so like a street light or something, you can focus on that. Or you can try to focus on the moon, or you can tell your friend, hey, please run 200 meters away from here and put a little flashlight, and then you focus on the flashlight. So there's a few things how you can help yourself if you have a DSLR. If you have a mirrorless camera, it's getting a lot easier, because actually on the finder and on the screen you can see more or less what you're shooting at. And the Sony's, or like also other cameras, like nowadays they're so good that you can see through the finder at night what you're shooting, and you can easily focus on the stars. Then when you're taking your image, you decide if you're gonna focus on the stars, as I just explained, or if you want to actually focus on the foreground, because you might want to take photos of people, photos of your friends, photos of yourself. If I'm taking photos of people, I usually focus on the person. So you see here, like the person is sharp, the camera is sharp, but meaning that the background is blurry. So the stars are like bigger. That means the focus is here. That's, you choose according to your photo. But when you understood this, it's actually fun, because you can understand which photos are fake and which photos are not fake. So, like, if we look, for example, at this photo, amazing photo, no doubts, but it consists at least of three different images that have been put together. The reason why is because you have here, so the laptop is sharp, the people are sharp, and then you have the aurora, the stars. Oh, weird, they're sharp as well. And then that means you can, with a camera, you cannot shoot like the foreground sharp and the background sharp at the same time. So that's how you know this photo, beautiful, but it's not real. So like that's the thing, like you scroll through Instagram and you might see, oh wow, this is amazing and so cool, but in the end it's actually it's fake. One more thing that is fake in this photo is that there's no reflection. So this is a glass igloo. It means if you have lights inside, they're gonna reflect on the glass that you have here. So this reflection is completely missing. So that's why they probably took an aurora photo first and then they replaced the foreground, or the other way around. It's just interesting to see when you have understood this. Yes, then it might be interesting for some of you. So filming the aurora. So first I want to show you the difference between time-lapse and real-time filming. So there's a big difference. I'll show you. Give me 1 second. So this one is a time-lapse. So the camera takes like one photo every, here in this case, one photo every second. So you see this, it's the aurora of around 1 hour, more or less. Well, maybe half an hour, what you see here, cropped into 10 seconds. So that's a time lapse. That's what I was explaining before, that in this case you better choose a set, a set white balance. So here's another one, this time in horizontals. This is actually interesting because you see the aurora is charging and then it's actually exploding. So you see like the whole sky blows up and then it's going back to the north. That's around 1 hour time lapse. The difference to real-time filming is, so this is pretty easy because you just need the settings for photography. But if you want to film real-time, it's different. So I'm going to show you a real-time video. It actually has been this week where I saw the craziest aurora of my life on one of our road trips. It was insane. This is, I think, the best video of aurora that I've got so far in my life. And you see it's moving crazy fast. Like, it just blows up the whole sky. That's a real-time video. You see, like, aurora can actually move this fast, but this was the first time in my life that I have seen it this much blowing up. It's crazy. Yes. Okay. So, for the settings for filming. So first, you need to reduce your shutter speed, of course. So the shutter speed for filming, I usually use 1/25 because you still get the smooth movement and it's not too dark. You need to set your ISO a lot higher than when taking photos. So that's also the issue that you cannot film with every random camera. So you need to set the ISO at least like 30 to 50,000, depending if you have moon or if you don't have moon. If you have the moon, filming gets a lot easier because the moon gives extra light. So it's, you know, this photo is, for example, this photo is taken during moon. So the whole landscapes, everything is much brighter, which makes it much easier to take photos and to take videos of the aurora. The ISO needs to go as high as, yeah, like 30, 40, 50,000. And this, not every camera supports this. So we are using the Sony Alpha 7S III for filming. It's the camera that performs just absolutely the best in low light. And it's also actually made for filming because it doesn't have that many megapixels. The thing with the megapixels, what it has to do with the quality of the filming is the more megapixel do you have, the more you go up with the ISO, the grainier it gets. So that's why you need a camera that doesn't have so many megapixels. It sounds weird in the beginning, but it's like that. So this Sony Alpha 7S III, it has only 12 megapixel. That's why it's so great for filming. And of course you need a bright lens. So you cannot film at night with a f4 lens. It just doesn't work. So you really need a lens that supports this low aperture. So like f1.4, f1.8, maybe 2.8 can still work if you have the moon, but not amazingly. So that is for everybody who wants to try to film the aurora. That's gonna be what you need. It's expensive because the Sony Alpha 7S III, it's a very expensive camera, but it does an amazing job. Seriously, like it's it's very, very good if you want to film the aurora. I've actually also seen people that are shooting like documentaries at night. They actually are shooting a documentary of us, and they also use the 7S III to film us under the northern lights. So that's the one. Yeah, so that's all about the settings. Just checking the chat if there's any questions for now about the settings or about filming. Just gonna wait a little. Seems like no for now. Yes, on the wish list for filming, yes. Makes super sense. Okay, then we keep going, and I want to show you a little bit what kind of equipment I'm using, me and my boyfriend are using for photographing and photographing the aurora. So first I want to show you a little bit about the lenses, because in the end I think it's one of the of course, camera and lens. It's one of the most important things to have a good lens, and I really want to so we have mostly all of the lenses from the Sigma art collection. art collection because they're actually made to be very good in low light conditions. So all the art collection has a very good aperture. So when you are looking for a lens, you see this f value here, that's the aperture. So the lower this is, the better it is. And so I put this one first because it's my favorite lens. It's the 14 millimeter f1.4 art. It's actually not out that long. I think Sigma has it since like a year maybe. And this is one of the photos. So you see the 14 millimeter means you have a quite like wide range that you can see. So like you can take like a large area of the sky. So this is great when auroras are big or you want to take also a lot of landscapes. And that's why I like this lens so much. First, it has a super bright aperture with a very wide angle, which is the perfect combination. And it's super sharp. So that's for all the Sigma lenses. They're just so sharp, and that's what I love especially. That's what I love especially when photographing at night, because you can see all the stars. You see like all the tiny little stars, like all the shapes, the mountains, the snow. It's just so sharp. That's why it's just awesome to photograph with it. Also, what I find really handy about the 14, it's a pretty heavy lens, which is great because it's robust and has amazing quality. But it has this little thing here on the bottom where you can actually attach like the lens straight to the tripod. So you see, I actually have it here. You see like this thing here? You can attach this directly to your tripod, because in many cases, actually you see like the lens is actually bigger than the camera. So it often makes more sense that you attach it here on your tripod, because it's going to be more stable than attaching it here. So that's why I think this is a very smart thing. And also if you want to change between horizontal and vertical, it's super easy because you can just unscrew this and turn, I don't know if you see this, but you can just turn this around all the time. So it's very easy to switch between horizontal and vertical. And it has a great lens cap that doesn't fly off because it has this click thingy. So finally, I'm not losing lens caps anymore. Very good. Yes, so that's my favorite. And then the one I also love is the 20 millimeter f1.4, also from Sigma. I think this one is out already quite a while. This one is especially good if you want to photograph people under the aurora, if you want to shoot smaller auroras. That's the one that you want to use. The reason why, of course, 20 millimeter is more narrow than 14, so you don't get the people actually distorted. So of course when you photograph people with the 14, it might look like they get like too long legs, or you know, the face, it gets a little like longer. For me personally, I don't mind, but of course if you want to have the proper proportions and everything, then I would recommend to use the 20 millimeter for people. Also, if the aurora is small, you know, like the aurora is not big every single night, so that's why sometimes it's just small. In that cases, I like to use the 20, because if you have the 14 and you know it takes so much of the sky, and then you have just a tiny little aurora line on the horizon, it doesn't look great. So in that case, you can use the 20 millimeters, or maybe even the there's also the 24 millimeter from the art collection. I haven't tried it yet because for us it's too narrow, but I believe if you shoot like far away stuff at night, that's gonna be very good to use as well. Then the one I also really like, and I just got to try thanks to Sigma, is the 15 millimeter fisheye, diagonal fisheye, also f1.4, which has the same great attach here. These are two photos that I took. So this is my photo and this is Lorenzo's photo actually. So the great thing is that with this lens you can take like a lot of the sky. You see this one, it takes almost the whole sky. Like if the aurora explodes and it's just huge, then this lens is amazing. Of course, it's not great for photographing people because you're gonna have it distorted like everything. So that's why for people, not great. But for landscapes, amazing, because usually with the other two lenses, you can like either take the sky or the landscape. But with this one you can take both. You see like this aurora happened overhead, and you still see like the mountains, the fjords, the reflection. So that's why I think the fisheye is very nice. And yes, so this I think are my top three lenses, and it's great also because they're available for many different mounts. So it depends, of course, which camera you have. You need to check which kind of mount you need. So I'm using mostly Sony, so I'm checking for E-mount. But if you have Nikon or Canon, then they have it with their different mounts, or actually there's adapters. That's also what we are using, because Lorenzo shoots with a Nikon C9, so he's actually also using the E-mount like Sony lenses that he can attach. Exactly. So I want to show you also a little bit about the Sigma FPL. So you know, Sigma produced a camera, the FPL. It's this one that you see here. You see here it's a full frame camera, has a huge sensor. And yeah, it was nice because we could try the 15mm fisheye with the Sigma FPL camera. And these are the two photos that we got with it. And it's crazy because these two photos are not edited. So you can see how crazy on point the camera is. Like it's just so sharp, and the colors are very much on point. So that's what I really like about the Sigma camera. Like the sharpness and the colors are just out of this world. I mean, look at these photos. It's absolutely crazy. It's also nice because the camera is very, very small, so it's nice that you can take it everywhere. And yeah, just wanted to show you these two crazy pictures that we got with the Sigma FPL. Like, it's the sharpness, so I think it's also great because the lenses and the camera, they fit so well together because of course it comes from the same company, so the sharpness just gets insane. So when you have a camera and a lens, you need a couple of other things before you can actually get started on doing astrophotography. So first, shortly back to the cameras. So I would really recommend full frame cameras for astrophotography. The reason why: the full frame cameras have a bigger sensor. As you just saw with the FPL, the sensor is big and it's not cropped. That means more light can fall in and you just get overall a better quality. It gets sharper because you have more pixels basically, and also faster photos because you don't need to let so much light fall in the camera. So you can use a lower shutter speed, which usually also results in sharper photos. And of course, not like an aurora as just one green fat like ball on your picture, but actually something where you can see the shapes, the pillars, what's happening. Also, you get a wider view. So basically, of course, with the crop sensor, it's smaller, so it's better to have a full frame. So for brands, so as I already told you, I'm using mostly Sony cameras. I really like them because they're quite small. Lorenzo loves Nikon. He's shooting with the C9. But I would, before you start, like you buy a camera, I would also check like which kind of lenses you buy and if they're available for your mount. So that's what I would advise you. So I mean, haven't looked so much into it, but I believe if you buy some like very small camera brands, you have much less availability for lenses that actually fit to your camera. So first, I think Sony was always known that it doesn't have the best colors. I have to say there's a big difference since I swapped my Sony 7 III to the Mark IV. So I think with the newer models, they're improving a lot the colors. First, Nikon was a lot better for the colors, and I think it's still slightly better maybe for the colors, but Sony is catching up very well. And then of course you have the Sigma that has amazing colors. I personally haven't used Canon. I have a friend who uses Canon, and he also gets great stuff. What is very, very important is that you have a good tripod. So if you have already an expensive camera, maybe an expensive lens, you want to make sure that you have a very good tripod to hold your camera, because of course you're shooting with long exposures most of the time. Even 1 second is a too long exposure to hold your camera. So in any case, when shooting the Aurora, you will need a tripod. So that's why you really want to make sure you have a good one, because it holds your camera, and also it's night, so maybe you're on like a rocky foreground, or it's icy, or there's it's maybe not straight, so you know, like it might flip easily, or like you might run over it easily, or something happens and you don't want your camera to fall. That's why I would really like go for a good tripod. We are using the Manfrotto ones. I think it's like 0.55 or something. And for now, I've been quite happy with it. You see like 3 of them standing around here. They're like 9 kilos each. So I know it's a lot to carry around, especially when you're traveling, it might be hard. But it's always good to have a good tripod. It makes photography at night just so much more fun if you're using a proper tripod. Then you also, of course, you need a camera backpack. I mean, this personal preference, I would just really take one, because it's not nice if you have the camera lying around. Of course, the more professional get, the more space you're gonna get. There's more space in the backpack you need, but it's actually cool because many brands, they have this changeable like inside camera pocket, so you can like get a small one and then upgrade to a bigger one, for example. Other stuff that is useful when going outside. I can speak out of experience. Take extra batteries, especially, of course, when you're shooting the Aurora, most likely it's cold. Of course, there's nights when it can be very warm still, like in September. I was shooting this year with even +25 still in September, which has been crazy. But usually, of course, the Auroras can be seen from September, or let's say end of August, to like mid-April. So most of the time in Lapland it's cold. So with the cold, the batteries get exhausted faster, so that's why always take more, because like it's the worst thing that happens. Like the Aurora is exploding and oh my god, you're out of battery. Like it's just so sad. Like that's why extra batteries are great. Lens warmer is one thing that I would recommend to use. It's a little thing that you attach to a power bank, and you basically wrap it around your lens, and it heats up the lens so it doesn't get foggy, because of course if you have like -10 degrees, -20, the lens might get frozen like on the top. That's why it's nice to prevent that with a lens warmer. Then of course, take enough SD cards. Nothing more annoying than like what you're photographing, you can save it. I usually also take additional chargers, cables, power banks for phones. I usually take a headlamp, because of course you might be like searching for a spot, or like you dropped something, like if you drop the lens cap, it's very handy to have like a headlight just to see. Good gloves are handy, because of course when you're taking photos, you have to use all the time this small buttons on the camera. So it's nice to have these gloves where you can actually have like some fingers free, because it's nice, because like your whole hand stays free and you just have like the finger that looks outside. So that's pretty cool. I also like to take a lantern, because I think you can create pretty epic photos with lanterns. Like this one, I really like this one, because you see the Milky Way, the Aurora, the reflection. So I think lanterns are just a great tool. Also, if you want to take, for example, photos of people, if they hold the lantern like close to their face, it actually lights up the face, so you need less extra light to put on the people when you're taking a photo. So I think that's great. Yeah, otherwise I usually don't take much else. Okay, a very important topic: weather. if you want to shoot Milky Way or the auroras or anything, the thing is you need clear sky. So the aurora is happening from 80 kilometers to around 500 kilometers above us. That means you will really need to have clear sky, because of course if you have clouds in the middle, it's gonna block your view. So that's also why with our company we're driving so much, because we are really trying to go to the place spontaneously where it has the best weather. We usually check on Windy. I mean, we use not just Windy, we use like 10 million different other apps and applications to, of course, get it as best as possible. But if you wanna check quickly, Windy is a great tool. And yeah, you wanna prevent nights like this when aurora is exploding and you have some clouds. Of course, it can happen because I have had a lot of experience that forecasts are not correct, or like clouds, suddenly fog is appearing, all these things can happen. But if you check the weather, you can higher the chances a lot. Then to aurora activity. Of course, I don't know how familiar you all are with the auroras. So if you see aurora, if there's aurora, it all depends on the aurora activity. So of course, some night it can be crazy huge, it can be exploding overhead, or sometimes it can be like a tiny line on the horizon. So you see here 2 photos. So this I've taken 3 days ago on a road trip. You see, like sometimes this is all we got in the night. So there was nothing more than this little line on the horizon. That happens. So that's also why I want to say that, is to like that people have the right expectations. This was a crazy night where we had a storm, an aurora storm happening, and we had all kinds of dancing pink, red shades, like everything. It was crazy. But of course, not every night is like this. So actually now, I don't know how much you follow the news, but so now 2024 is supposed to be solar maximum, and it actually is. Meaning that the sun's magnetic field is more disturbed, which meaning is it's producing more, it has the potential to produce more solar storms. So it basically, the sun's magnetic field is such a chaos that it's more likely that you get more explosions from the sun happening. And actually, so far since September, we have had a very, very good season. If you want to check the aurora activity yourself, I could talk about this like forever probably, but I'm trying to keep it short. So this website that you see here, Aurora Webcams, it actually powered by us, Arctic Road Trips. So by me and Lorenzo, it was our idea, together with a very nice guy, Mauro, friend of ours, Italian guy. And so our idea was, because there are so many different webcams that we use for chasing the aurora, like checking the clear sky, checking how the aurora is, to put them all in one application, one website. So wait, hold on, I need to take the laser away. So, oh no. So this is our website. So basically you can see here, we have a map of aurora webcams all over the world. So for example, of course, the stronger the aurora is, the more south it can go. So that's why we have also webcams like in Denmark, in southern Sweden, in southern Norway, because if the aurora activity is actually strong enough, you can see it also in the southern hemisphere. There was, for example, the strong storm on the May 10th when it was visible all over the world. So with this app, you can check like, oh, is there aurora in Spain right now? Or of course, for us, it's handy to have all those cameras in Lapland here. Actually, we can check if there's aurora right now. Let's see. Oh, yes. Muonio has some aurora in Finland. Then, oh, there's aurora in Levi right now. Aurora in Sodankula. So that's actually happening just right now. That's live. So I think Lorenzo's happy because he's seeing some auroras right now. Yes, and then, of course, you need to check the aurora activity. So you can go here to aurora activity charts, and it'll show you how the aurora activity is right now. It takes a little while that you can understand how it actually works, but I can try to give you like a brief understanding. So you need to imagine Earth's magnetic field is always oriented positive. So the sun's magnetic field, if it's also oriented positive, they cannot connect, because it's like two magnets, two positive magnets. They repel each other, so they don't want to connect. But if the magnetic field of the sun goes negative, they actually can connect. So what's happening is positive and negative is attracting each other, and they connect. So actually that's what's happening right now, and actually pretty strong. So I think tonight actually there will be probably a pretty crazy aurora, because at the moment the BZ, so that's the direction of the magnetic field of the sun, it's -10 south. So that's crazy. That's super good activity. So actually probably if it stays like this, you can see the aurora tonight, maybe on the horizon in Stockholm as well. If it stays like this, it must be another explosion from the sun that arrived just now. So you can go here to chat interval, press +6 hours, and it actually has been down negative for the past 6 hours. So I'm sure this is a CME, so explosion from the sun. So this is the last 12 hours. You see here, more like regular solar activity, nothing much happening. And then you got the sharp drop to -10. If this one stays on the positive side all the time, so just steady on the positive, in that night, you're probably not going to see much aurora. It's going to be probably pretty small. Of course, then it's not only this. That's the most important thing, but there's the solar wind density that is important. The solar wind speed is important, and then there's lots of other prediction models. So basically, this would be the sun. Basically, long-term forecast, which kind of explosions are coming from. You can check hemispheric power. I mean, that's probably all going too far right now, but yeah, there's lots of interesting things. So this is our website that we made, but of course you don't need to use ours. You can use, you can also use, for example, Space Weather Live. It's from us, I believe the guy is based in Kiruna, and it's the same data. So all this aurora stuff, like the data, so how the aurora activity is, it comes from 2 satellites, Discover and ACE, and they are just sending the data. So on any different website, you're gonna see exactly the same data. So also here, BZ -10, same data, just different display, different website, and made for different needs. Yes. Sorry. And yeah, then I just wanted to show you a couple of more photos to maybe inspire you a little bit how beautiful aurora photography can be. First, you finally take time to spend time outside, to look at the stars, to actually appreciate how our world is. And it's fun to play with composition. So for example, here, like amazing reflections on the lake, here like the moon, the sunset, crazy aurora shapes. You can play with fog, mountains, lanterns, a tent. So it has like, that's, I think, what for me is so beautiful about it. Aurora is different every night. You're in a different spot every single night. So that's why it gives like a huge variety of opportunities to photograph. And I think that's what makes it special for me. And yeah, I think I've come to an end. I say thank you so much for listening. I hope I could inspire you. I hope I could teach you something. Yes, now I'm open for any questions that you might have. I'm gonna check in the chat now if there's already something. Oh, you know, somebody says using double gloves. Yes, can recommend that. I'm doing that too. Actually, for now, which brand for gloves I recommend? I'm using Hestra, but there's also this, I actually just discovered this brand for photography lenses. Let me check if I can find it. Actually, somebody recommended to me. One second. No, can't find it. But if you Google like photography gloves, you will see those gloves that they have, like you can put the thumb and this and the finger out. So that's the kind of gloves that I would recommend. Yes, so for now I don't see many more questions. Yeah, okay, so I think that's it. I say thank you for listening, thanks for being here, and yeah, hope you still have a good evening. Bye bye.